Hi, Pete Wardell here, and this interview is with someone who is undoubtedly a legend in magic, Paul Daniels. And I can't help but smile when I say I have an interview with Paul Daniels for you because I grew up watching him on TV. He was the man who was responsible pretty much for me getting into magic in the first place. Every Saturday night I'd sit in front of the TV and I'd wait for a show, the Paul Daniels Magic Show. Eventually, Paul Daniels went on to perform more unique magic on TV than any other magician in history. He's had shows in the West End, and he's headlined in Las Vegas, and he's also appeared on Broadway. And to be fair, this introduction is so short because, well, he is a magical legend. So here it is, an interview with Paul Daniels, the Paul Daniels.
I have never understood it when financial advisors come to me and they say, now, Mr. Daniels, we're going to show you how to handle your money. And I think when they do that, just a minute, I've got more money than you. I want a multimillionaire to come and tell me how to handle my money, how to handle my business. Those are the people you should be listening to. Now, by the same token, magicians are very strange people, aren't we? But what it is with magicians is they seem to be blissfully unaware of the divisions in magic. There are big divisions. There is the world of the amateurs, and they all believe they're better than me. And I know that because when David Nixon was the television magician of his day, I knew I was much better than him. And that's a real eye-opener once you realize you are really not. You really are not. The difference is enormous between doing it even as a semi-pro and taking that dive into the world of show business where you have to be good at not necessarily the magic, but the stagemanship, the showmanship, the salesmanship. That's where you've got to be good. These kids now can stand in front of one of these. This is just on my laptop. And I've got one in here. I've got a flip camera somewhere. You can just stand in front of that and do a magic trick. But you haven't learned about the lighting. You haven't learned about camera work, camera editing. In this case, you see, I would never do a show just stuck on one camera, but I talk on YouTube on one camera. I find technology interesting. I find that instead of having to write 500 emails to fans and things, I can just go on Twitter and they're all getting it. Now, I've got a lot of followers. I've got about 26,000. Well, it's not bad, is it, for a conjurer? And so, but also it sells tickets. I can tell my fans where I am. And in the shows, in the live shows, most times, not always, I forget sometimes, but most times I say, I'm on Twitter. Simplicity of Twitter, it's there, it's done, it's gone. What else do? I think also it's a very fast way to get information out. I did a university show, and a guy on there said to ask the audience, because I like questions, they said, what happened to the elephant? And he was far too young. And I said, how do you know about the elephant? And he said, it's on YouTube. Now, that's the good and the bad. The good is I've now got a whole young audience that can't see me on TV. And the bad is I don't get paid for that. And that really hurts. But I have lots of parallel lines here. Laurel and Hardy. There was a comedian teamed up with Dean Martin called Jerry Lewis. And Jerry Lewis found Stan Laurel living in a garret because he had no money, right? And yet his films were on every channel in America, morning and afternoon. So Jerry Lewis went to the High Court, Supreme Court, and they decreed that the man should be paid if you're using his talent. And I think that's fair, and Stan saw his days out in some comfort. A parallel with that in England, if you want to know about show business, was I have a friend. Surprise, huh? I have a friend, and in the 1940s into the 50s, he and his brother were headliners, top of the bill, radio shows in those days, stars, okay? So along came television and they got it. And so since 1960, I would say he hasn't earned any money. And he's over 100 now. That's a long time to go back to your daytime job of being a welder or a plumber or whatever, you know. And it's a peculiar business. If you don't plan on your retirement years, your older years, you're in deep trouble. That was amazing. The richest man in Babylon theory came as a bit of a shock to me because I was told about it when I was 32, the principle. I think The Richest Man in Babylon is actually a sort of novel built around the system. I don't believe in The Richest Man in Babylon, but I do believe in the system. And the system does work. And we all think, oh, well, you know, tomorrow. But it's not. You got to do it now. You got to do it every time you get paid. There's a great line in The Richest Man in Babylon where somebody says to him, I can't afford to save 10% of everything I earn.
That's the system.
And he points to somebody else. He says, well, he's earning less than you, and he's living. You know, to this difference between the amateurs who will revere somebody who's totally unknown, who nobody's heard of, who isn't earning the big bucks. And they'll poo-poo guys like me and Copperfield and all that who are earning the big bucks. You guys are nuts. You know, you should be listening and taking notes. I mean, certainly that's what I did anyway. My 10% principle came from a multimillionaire who told me about it. When I did a summer season way back, I turned professional, and Michael Bentine, comedian, very good after-dinner speaker and comedian, was doing a summer season at which he wasn't all that good, you know. And in fact, he left a bit early. He knew, because he was a clever guy. And he was on, at that time, £800 a week, and I was on £200 a week. And I thought, what's the difference? And the difference was he was on TV. So I marketed myself onto TV. I'm sick of watching amateurs on my television screen. They used to be full of professionals who knew what they were doing. Part of my advice to young magicians has always been, look, don't watch magicians, you know. Go and watch star names who have been there a long time. There must be a reason why they're still working. If you can lock onto it. I believe, because of the media and the hype and all of it, that the Crankies were old hat and rubbish. That woman makes an audience roll, scream, pour with laughter, you know, every night. Her body language, her timing, her looks, her stage walk and everything. There's a lot to learn from watching Jeanette Crank. That every venue you do is different. Theatres are bigger. You have to make bigger gestures. Cabaret, it's a bit tighter, a bit more neat. After dinner speaking, no matter how big the room, should be fairly intimate. You should be talking to heads, people. Television, you're only entertaining 2 or 3 people on a settee, aren't you? About 12 feet away. So the big stuff isn't the best stuff for TV. At the time, I thought it was fun.
Doing TV, that is.
At the time, I thought I was having fun. When it ended, it was like a big weight went off my shoulders. I didn't realize how I'd been doing that for so long, you know.
He did a lot of magic.
365 days a year, 24 hours, non-stop. Riding along, see a motorbike and go, write this down, Deb. And I would have thought of a new way, a different presentation of vanishing a motorbike. Example, when John Fisher wanted an elephant vanish, he wanted it in the open air. He didn't want it to be using an aha, one of those dips in the ground. Eventually he said, I want it on a football pitch. And so I knew all about the gauze version and the flap at the back and walk them out and this, that, and the other. None of those applied. And I just doodled this completely new method of doing it. And I think it was the Sun newspaper or the Mirror published a method of using the perspective of the camera, which was nonsense if you watched it, because we fly the thing out. But in any case, I would have considered that to be a camera trick in that condition. I really don't like camera tricks. And I don't like staging something in a place where we know those are stooges in the background who are ignoring the mirror. That kind of thing. By all means, use a mirror on a stage, in a set situation, but not where this is supposed to be a car park or something like that, because we know it can't work there. And there's one going the rounds where does he vanish, or the girl vanishes or appears on a bed with the audience sitting behind. And if you watch the two women in this corner, they're going as she goes down behind the mirror. I mean, we should have vanished the elephant in the studio. And then the next season said, did you see this last year? Well, a lot of people thought because we were in the studio and then done it in the open air, which would have added to the magic side of it. I do like mixing principles, and I like moving load chambers. So having shown one area where the girl couldn't possibly be, as I reveal another area where she couldn't be, it's moved. And I also like illusions where, well, most of my illusions, the assistant has no choice. My actions create the perfect time. Invent off my head, but holding a cloth up in front of a girl who's going to go down a trapdoor, she might go down too early, or she might go down too late. Okay? But if the trapdoor has a cable connected to the bar you're lifting up, when it's at the perfect height, she'll be released. You might hear, I can't see any point in staying in bed. Yeah. There's so much to do every morning. And I know, forgive me, I know I've got emails, Twitters, Facebooks, sometimes I catch up on blogging, that kind of thing, to get out the way within the first half hour.
Yeah.
Boom, gone. Then I have to look at the online shop. We've got an online magic shop. At the moment, the online fancy dress shop and all that, all the prices have gone cockamamie on that. So I'm going to have to sort all that out, I am not going to sell you those 36-inch silks at the price that's on there now, I'll tell you. And so it's all of that's got to be done. I'm constantly thinking of ways of advertising the shop. It's in the Wigan area. And just the last couple of days, I've been thinking of going up there. And although I can't do this now until February, I don't think, because I'm fully booked right through. So I'm thinking of going up there and doing a series of small lectures. If you want something doing, you should always ask a busy man. And because we all us busy guys, have this thing, just do it. Just do it, get on with it. I don't have to work every day. It's probably because I don't think it's work. I still love it. Things I've been talking about lately I've gone right back to the beginning and picked up beginners' tricks and given them a different look, a different way of doing them. as opposed to just buying the trick and doing it. The first one I worked on, unbelievably, was the Four Burglars trick that starts everybody up. And I've got 3 hidden behind here, but I must go to the toilet to set up and all that, And I did it just a couple of weeks ago for a magic type guy. And he said, how the hell did you do that? They know, And there are people out there who know, but the vast majority of people don't. And they do like a story behind the magic. And I picked that up from watching singers. There are 1,000 singers out there. But the ones that made it the most entertaining program for me were the ones who told the story behind the song. And then reading a book from 150 years ago, just the other night, I found the story that came before the Four Burglars. And I'm having great joy in finding these really ancient tricks. One of the reasons is I'm selling off all these old magazines on eBay. And I'm encouraging young people to buy these, dive in and use your imagination rather than buy the latest thing from the dealer because everybody else has bought. I really like the principle that Billy McComb, Alan Jackson, Terry Seabrook, there was another one, I can't remember, but certainly those 3. They were magicians working in London professionally. And they got together, sat down and said, look, we don't want to be doing the same stuff. So Billy got the coin in the bottle, and Alan got catching the fish and stuff like that. They split it up. I bought, and I spent some time on it, I'll tell you. Ken Brooks sold a rising card, Nemo. Have you ever seen that in a plastic holder? Brilliant thing. And at the end, the punter is hold of it. And the envelope rises out, and then the card rises out of the envelope, okay? And you just take the envelope and the card at the same time and give it, and they've got everything. There's nothing left. I must have practiced that, played with it, toyed with it, pulled it around for 6 weeks. And I went out and did a club. And it didn't go all that well. And that surprised me, because I thought it was a great trick. And then one of the punters came up and said, well, there was a fella did that last week. And I said, who was that? And he said, Bunny Neal. Did you ever come across Bunny Neal?
No.
Bunny was a working pro, came over here, used to walk on, tying a little bag of goodies around the mic stand. You'll love this as a street worker. And he would take out the razor blades without saying anything. Slice, eat, take a drink of water and go, good evening. And do his act. All right? And the last thing he did, he got the cotton and went, and they all came out. Beautiful. I admired him. He was a working pro. I never did the trick again. He retired. And then I did it on the Shirley Bassey show. The thing is, with the chair routine, which you're talking about, what people realize is, until I came along, nobody clicked the connection of sticking them to the chairs. That's all mine. I wrote that. There's been a whole hoo-ha recently about Keith Chegwin writing other people's jokes on things. And what's the difference? You're back to that loop. If you only focus on, ooh, I've got a new trick. Ooh, look how wonderful this is. Well, I'm sorry. I mean, you've lost the entertainment plot. And isn't it sad when every journalist comes onto me and says, would you class yourself as a magician or an entertainer? That's the state you've got us into, lads. Start climbing out. Think for yourself. You should take the trick as it comes. I never used to read the instructions, unless it said you will break it, I would take it out and play with it and see what I came up with, or see if I could figure out what was supposed to happen, and then I would read the instructions. Ken Brook was the only dealer who sold entertaining instructions. The only man, everything I bought, I performed. You know? Mostly because he'd done it over and over and over again himself. The greatest magic dealer I ever met or saw, or what was to sell chop cups all over the place. And he said to me, "You were in Huddersfield last week, weren't you, Paul?" "How do you know that?" "Orders for chop cups." We're back to, why do something somebody else is doing, you know? It's in Mac King. I'll tell you, there's 3 bits of Mac King's act that I believe I could do very well. I believe I could deliver it and sell it, and I believe it would get a lot. I would love to do it. I would never do them. Never. I would think a lot less of myself if I would stop all children's magic shows. I realize that upsets a lot of my mates who do very good children's magic shows, but there is a psychological problem. Those children grow up and in their heads, they remember enjoying a magic show when they were a child. So they think magic is for children. That's why they don't book you into a cabaret or a theatre. A professional promoter might, but most people having their weddings and all that, they won't book you for cabaret because they enjoyed you when they were a child. So they think it's childish. So I'd stop all children's magic shows. Well, never leave your money in the dressing room. That's rule 1. Rule 2, watch non-magic shows and try to figure out how they are staged, how it's delivered. If you are a silent act, I would be seriously going to look at the kind of music concerts that you want behind you so that you will be better. I would study, and it's all on the internet now if you don't want to go out, but I would go out. I mean, I love live theatre, and I would pick up lighting tricks from them. Even if you're just going to do stand-up, if you go and see Jackie Mason, he flies in a red frame, or one of his concerts, it was a red frame, you know, behind him with a globe just going slowly around, globe of the world. And he was, I mean, if you were doing, example, magic from all over the world, what a nice set, you know, and easy links, you know, that kind of thing. And I would also not just learn close-up magic. It's very good. I enjoy it. I do it all the time, you know. I very rarely get paid to do close-up magic. When I do, I get a lot of money. And I manage to get great reactions and all that. But it's not enough. If a booker comes to me and says, "Could you make a car appear?" Yes. Because I've studied illusion, I've studied black art, I've studied lighting in theatre, I know about sound systems. It ain't accidental where I am. I'm there because I've studied business techniques, sales techniques, you know. Why? Well, because anybody can do a trick. You know, you can give me Joe Soap and we'll go down to Dabby's or the Paul Daniels magicshop.co.uk and I could handpick half a dozen tricks, and by tomorrow night I could have him out in London doing close-up magic round a table with completely self-working tricks that would be just as amazing to the public as the best of our finger flingers.
So a huge thank you to Mr. Paul Daniels.
you can't ruin my career. I've been working hard at doing that myself for years.